Me, a bro.
Yep.
He, a dude.
That's good stuff. All right. Let's try it. Okay. Welcome to the We Will Journey podcast. We're talking about faith and life as it happens, and not the glossy exterior we wish it was.
Oh,
What, man? What did I do
no,
wrong?
I think you said it's because all the things I was thinking about before. But we can edit that. You got that part good.
Oh.
You got it good. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, just.
Now it's your turn.
Good.
Yeah.
Wait. We're going to get under the surface. I should have said all those things before. We should have waited. Down and dirty until after we read this part.
Okay.
Okay. Wait. We get under the surface and explore the down and dirty. Okay. Maybe we should. It doesn't have to be word for word, right?
No. I mean, I gave an interpretation.
Okay. All right. We get under the surface and explore the down and dirty of life as it pertains to our beliefs, our relationships, politics, and absolutely everything else.
Oh, there we go. That was good. All right.
Three, 2, 1.
I hear birds chirping in the background. Sounds like a beautiful day there in Innsbruck, Austria.
It is, although I have to say the birds are pretty much always chirping. Or it seems like they're always chirping. I should close the window though, huh? That would probably help with the background noise. I just noticed.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I like to hear the birds. They're quite lovely, and so that was loud. Getting everything shut there.
Shut her down.
So,
all right,
shut her down.
Birds are gone, man. Okay. I have a Red Ryder. Is that a Red Ryder BB gun?
Don't tell me. Don't tell me what you did to the birds. I don't want to know. I don't want to know what you did to the birds.
I'm a country boy.
That's right. That's right. I am a country boy.
I did grow up in the country, Albert. For real, I did. And if there were birds eating our strawberries or peas, corn, my mama would say, "Get out there with the BB gun, shoot them dead."
There you go. With your 6-shooter.
Them rabbits.
Yep.
Nah, them rabbits, them's the worst.
We never really had a garden when I was like 5 years, up to the age of 5. And then after that, we never had a garden. Did you guys have a garden on a regular basis? Were you gardening people?
Oh, heck yes.
Oh, yeah?
You may be...
I assumed you were, but I didn't know for sure. I didn't want to... I didn't...
No, I was going to say, that, I come from a family that's pretty health conscious when it comes to food and intake and stuff. And so we had a big garden, so a lot of delicious, fresh... you know the John Denver song, Homegrown Tomatoes?
I don't know if I know that one.
Oh, my gosh. Well... I'd say we could have sang it as a duet, but I guess that's out the window. So whatever. That's
I mean, I
fine.
can make it up as we go. You know,
That's all right.
homegrown
Homegrown
tomatoes.
tomatoes. Homegrown tomatoes. The only two things that money can't buy are true love and homegrown tomatoes.
Is that actually the words to it?
Yeah, that's the
our wow.
The two things that I mean, it makes sense, kind of, right? The two things that money can't buy are homegrown tomatoes and true love. That makes sense, right?
I feel like I know Alan Jackson's song "Living on Love," and it feels the same. It doesn't talk about tomatoes, but we could do that one, I guess, if you wanted to.
I'm not sure is that like living on a prayer? I know that one.
Okay, no.
We're halfway there. Oh.
No. So, living on love is living on love, buying on time without somebody. Nothing ain't worth a dime.
I get it. Ain't worth a dime.
A dime. Yeah.
Actually, I don't get it.
So that's Alan Jackson. But it'd be funny if there was one other person here that could think of a different genre of music that had a similar theme, though.
Weird Al Yankovic, White and Nerdy.
I think, yeah, that's it. You got it.
They see
we
me
made the
mowing my front lawn.
We made the full circle there. So I've been meaning to ask you something, Seth, and I just haven't done it yet.
Okay.
But
I'm ready.
yeah.
I think I'm ready.
Are you ready for this? But it used to be when you weren't at home, you were at the youth center. But you lost
you mean as a wild youth growing up?
No, your like job, your job. You'd be at the youth center, and so you'd be like, "Oh, I'm headed home. I'll call you in 20 minutes or whatever." And so you did that today, but the youth center no longer exists. So do you have an office somewhere or something that I don't know about, or
I have my
where? Yeah, tell me about this. Tell me about where you hang out now that the youth center is gone. But you still seem to leave home.
I still
and go places, and then it's like if this is an office worky type place. What am I missing here?
You just assumed as while we were looking for a new center that I would just stay in my bed.
No, I did not think that for a minute, Seth. I knew that you'd be out of bed and working hard every day, but I just thought it'd primarily be from home.
I usually sit in my bed and I say, "Daughter, son, bring me some porridge."
Yes.
Father is hungry.
Yes.
A coffee would be splendid. 2 cubes of sugar. Yes, Father. A foot massage would also be in order.
I can see you patting them on the head as they bring it to you.
You're a good lad.
You're a good lad.
You're a good
now
lad.
Carry on.
Do your chores. Don't forget to write your arithmetic.
Go after your mother and help her with her morning chores or something like that.
Help the mother tend to the cows.
Okay, so
besides that, yeah.
No, before you answer the question, you just triggered a thought. Natalie and I found this book from like the 1950s.
Mm-hmm. Sounds intriguing.
It was like how to be like a good housewife or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It was so funny. Like we read through it together, and we're just kind of chuckling because it's like, before your husband gets home, freshen up your makeup so you look good, for your husband, and and just the way they talk about everything was so funny. But it was all about presenting yourself, to your husband and making sure the children don't bother him when he gets home and giving him time to unwind from his day. And it was just all the cliches from that era. It was just It was every one of them, in written, in a written format. You know, just it's just kind of crazy to think that that's kind of how they operated at that point in time.
Guidelines to being a proper housewife.
Yeah. Anyways, so Seth, tell us where you reside when you're not at home now.
Listen, boys, I'll be out and about for a while. Take care of your mother, wash the dishes, and feed the hamster. But don't feed the hamster to the snake, or vice versa.
You're not going to answer the question, are you?
No, I am. I just once I get on once I get on a roll, I can. And then you prolonged it. You said like, no, don't answer the question. Let's talk about Housewives from the 1935.
Okay, all right.
So
I'm ready.
Today,
I'm ready.
Today.
Okay.
It depends, that's not just a cut and dry answer. My home office is in my home. That's kind of a double negative. Or that's not a double negative, but it's
no.
It goes without saying.
Okay.
My office, yes, is at our home. We have a nice desk.
Your primary office. Your primary office is at home.
Where I do, like, for the most part, do computer work and emailing and that kind of jazz. Although now with these things called smartphones, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
They seem to be smarter than we give them credit for. They follow us and read our mail. I can kind of, also email and message wherever I'm at. But today I was actually at a meeting with friends for a birthday brunch.
Okay.
And was with Alyssa and Andrew, and we had that, and then was walking and talking with my friend for a bit after our brunch. Stopped to help some people, and so on and so forth with something. Usually, if I am gone doing ministry at a certain location, then there's a few different options. We have a church that we've been renting.
Okay.
Not the entire church, but there's a church that rents rooms, and we rent kind of a couple rooms from that church. If that makes sense. And we use that for like our tutoring program throughout the week, which would have happened in the youth center before. We also have our youth group on Saturdays. We meet there. And then we do a lot of outside things in the park, sports afternoons and picnic and stuff like that. Been doing that more and more on weekends, especially since that was such a big yawn. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that was on my end. You heard that? I heard that yawn.
It's just a perfect like, oh wow. Very fascinating.
Keep talking.
Wonderfully stimulating. This conversation is bringing me to new heights.
Really good. Really good. Thanks.
I feel mentally at a higher level now because of our conversing.
Well, you have a wonderful way of
bringing you to sleep.
Well, answering the question, gosh. You could have said, we rent a couple rooms from a church.
Well, that's not apparently what you wanted to know. You wanted to know where was I doing? You're very descriptive. You're very descriptive. If you want to know more information, tune in again another time.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really tired because of your story. I do want to clarify that. You're not boring me with your story. I really appreciate you answering the question. I just didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I haven't slept well for like 4 nights in a row. I don't know why, but
Hey guys, it's Seth. Some of you might be wondering, I wish there was a way to follow these guys and what they're up to. Well, I don't know if you heard about a little thing called the internet. That's right, if you check us out at twitter.com/WeWillJourney1, you'll be able to keep updated on what we're up to and maybe some future interviews or projects we're working on. Catch yous later. It's back out where you live. The sun doesn't go down in the summers, right?
Yeah, that's not it. That doesn't seem to be the issue. I've been having a little bit of like the restless leg or something going on.
I thought dogs got that.
Dogs and humans apparently. So actually, it kind of runs in my family on my mom's side.
Really?
My mom has she has restless legs. My uncle does. I think my grandma did. So anyways, seems like it's maybe a little bit hereditary, but it has not made for great sleep lately. And I'm wondering if I changed my routine a little bit. And that's primarily what this podcast is about, just talking about our health problems. But anyways,
I've been suffering from indigestion. Let me tell you.
Yeah. But yeah. So anyways, my exercise routine I've changed up a little bit lately. And so I don't know if that has something to do with it or not. But anyways. But I have something else that I wanted to talk about today that has nothing to do with my indigestion, restless legs,
restless arms,
or where you office at here lately. But you know, we had this enjoyable little, as we do many times, Seth, you and I, and maybe people are getting a little bit of that sense this morning or today or this afternoon, whatever. While listening to this recording,
midnight,
they're getting a little bit of a sense that you and I, we can kind of feed off of each other and make up some stupid story and just kind of roll with it. And that is something that when we don't have our software recording our conversation, that is kind of what we do. We may use some stupid voice when we call each other, and 45 minutes later, we actually get to some sort of conversation that we maybe intended to have.
Or it's just, and we were, look at the time, gotta go.
Yeah, it was good talking to you. We'll talk to you later.
I'll call you next time with my important information.
Whatever it was that I intended to talk about this time. So, you know, I found it interesting that we don't typically do that for our podcast. We try to have a topic to talk about.
We are serious individuals.
Yes. And last night, something just triggered another thought kind of down that path. But and I think this is pretty true. So I just thought it'd be interesting to talk about.
And you say I'm long-winded.
I know. It's taken me forever. But a lot of times, like in certain contexts, and I know there's like, it's just appropriate, but I thought it was just kind of interesting to talk about why we hold back in other contexts from being just kind of more of who we are. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of a common thing that a lot of people struggle with. Mm-hmm. When can I just be myself? And when do I have to
be the professional version of myself?
Yeah, or like sugarcoat myself, and so I'm a little more palatable for most of society. And then there's like, I'm palatable for most of society, and then there's being palatable for like Christian society. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So sometimes we'll govern ourselves based on where we are, you know, like, okay, in this group, it's okay to say this, but in this group, I have to maybe bring it down a little more, mm-hmm. you know, to be more palatable for this particular crowd. And I know there's an element to this that is just being polite. There's like a politeness to that, where you're just taking into consideration who you're around, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one part of this, right?
Yes.
But there's the other part of it is, should we do that? Should we do that if it's like drastically changing what we would normally do in that situation? Yeah, do you ever think about that, Seth? I know you actually do, because I know you've had situations before where you've kind of like cut loose and been your
what does that even?
You've been your true authentic self, and then people have responded negatively to that, and maybe even told you like, what's your problem, or something to that extent. And I deal with that too. I feel like in a lot of situations I kind of hold back. But I don't know. To me, that's kind of an interesting thing, because there is a thing in our culture right now, in American culture anyways, where it's just like, just be you, right? Just be you. Don't hold back. Just be more authentic to who you are and kind of roll with it. But there are consequences for that. So what do you think about that, Seth? What do you give that a lot of thought?
I do give it thought sometimes, and it's interesting because I just had a similar conversation at a recent meeting I had. We've been reading through, as a ministry team, we've been reading through this book about the church, more or less, like the big C church, and then also talking about individuals as Christians, and also the local church, right? And one of the things it talks about, which we just read in this last chapter, was the idea of, or not the idea, I don't know, but like talking about how the world is getting more diverse, especially in cities. So I mean, it's probably always going to be, rural areas are going to be one way and cities are going to be a different way, I guess. But like places are just becoming very diverse, and that in a way that kind of means our churches should become more diverse, right? And so it's just talking about like this. How do we accept people from all different cultures? How do we become a church that reflects society in that sense, not in like our morals, but like, wow, everyone, like for example, the neighborhood I live in right now is very multicultural, and like the school and kindergarten, there's, I don't know, countless different countries and stuff that are represented.
Sure. So
that means, in a way, right, our church should sort of begin to represent that, hopefully, Lord willing. And it makes me think about, in regards to that, and to your question, like for the Christian part of this, it made me think about Paul and him saying, I've kind of become all things to all people in order that I might, save some.
Yeah.
And it made me just think about this aspect of it, and sometimes I struggle with the like, so do I really need to act like differently for different settings and different cultures? Like I kind of would prefer, like, and maybe you're the same, I kind of prefer just to sort of be myself as much as I can, no matter what setting I'm in. But the complicated part of that, especially as a Christian and in a church setting, is like every culture comes with their different
do's and
don'ts and ways of living and how you interact. I just had a conversation with someone today, like here in Austria, when you clink your glasses together, like celebrating a birthday, then you look the person in their eyes. Someone was with us who comes from a culture where that's offensive.
Okay, so do you put your glasses back on before you look them in the eye?
Ha ha ha! You sly dog. I guess another.
And what about you? You don't wear glasses. That's got to be complicated.
It's very complicated, but I do have sunglasses, which.
Do you always have to have an extra pair of glasses just in case? It's like, oh boy, here's a situation where we have to kind of clink our glasses together.
That's why I have a backpack with me at all times. Extra supplies for every single. Cultural appropriate setting. So you know what I mean? Like one of those things I want to think about necessarily because I live in a culture where you always look each other in the eyes when you say cheers. Yeah. But someone from a different culture would be like, whoa, what are you doing? This is really offensive. Like, why are you looking at, like it's almost
Asian.
Exactly.
Asian cultures, for instance, they don't make as much eye contact as we do.
And so, in here, like this is different. Like, in the States, I never really think about if I look someone in the eyes when I would cheer. You just kind of look generally at the group and be like, hey, cheers, whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's just all these little things that to me can seem overwhelming, and sometimes I like to play the card of, oh, I'm a foreigner, I'm ignorant and whatnot. But I think there's a certain duty as a Christian, especially, to learn as much about other people's cultures as I can, even if that means sometimes sacrificing a bit of who I am. And I think it's, so for me, I try to find that balance of being authentic to who I am and also who I am as American and who I am as a Christian, but and who I am as a Midwesterner or whatever, I mean, like all these different things that kind of make up who I am as a person. I don't want to lose all those things. A Christian, being a Christian is obviously the way above the other parts of that. But at the same time, I also don't want to offend people needlessly, or as I think also Paul says, right? Do your best to live peacefully. As it might be Peter, I don't know.
It is in the Bible. Yep. Do your best.
So that's I guess my kind of tension and all of that is to figure out, like, how do I be myself and be authentic, which, for example, in youth ministry is extremely important. And people will notice things because of maybe who I am or where I come from and my background and my family. They'll be like, wow, that's really cool. I don't experience that in my culture. Why are you like that way? Or where do you come from that makes you like that? Or how do you have that confidence?
Where did you come from?
Where did you come from?
My
sir?
word. Where did you come from?
And
why did you land on our planet?
whereas in a more adult setting, among peers, people might be like, oh, you're so immature. You know what I mean? And,
right. Yeah.
And you probably experienced that too, obviously, because you've done a lot of youth and kids ministry and stuff like that. I think that's part of the reason maybe I'm drawn to doing more teenager youth and kids ministry and stuff, is because I feel like it's like a safe place where you can be yourself and you get accepted for that. It sounds so goofy, it sounds so like sad that that's the truth, but it kind of seems like that. Email. That's right, I said email. Seems like everybody's got one these days, even us. So if you want to get in contact with us or chat about the weather, you can shoot us an email at wewilljourney.connect@gmail.com. Look forward to hearing from you or reading from you.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. I feel similar. There's things I can do at a youth event that I can't do at a adult event. When we go on our ski retreat, the kids are always a little stiff. The first night, especially the first night, they're always a little stiff when it comes to the worship band and singing and like moving any part of their body. It's almost like they're a mannequin. Try, if you can imagine, moving a mannequin's arms to clap their hands a little bit. That's kind of like what the kids are. And so I'm always like the crazy sponsor that is like standing on my chair and clapping and like going around to the kids like, come on, get into it. I'm that guy. And, which doesn't translate at like an adult event. That wouldn't be nearly as appropriate if you were just working with a lot of stiff adults, so anyways, but, yeah, so I definitely get what you're saying there. One of the thoughts that I was having is, and I kind of struggle with this, like, so if you're constantly having to censor yourself, okay? Mm-hmm. So, like, if you're in an environment where you just kind of constantly have to censor yourself because they're so different, than what you are, is that a environment that you should be in, or should you try to find an environment that is more suitable for yourself? Mm-hmm. Have you ever had that thought? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely have that thought in regards to church community. Obviously I think if you have like a friends circle that you don't feel like you can be yourself in, then that might be...
That's not actually a friend circle.
Yeah, that might be something you want to look at.
That's not actually, yeah.
And to be honest, I don't feel like I can be totally myself, even around some friends. It also changes.
Yeah.
But what I would say also is like, in the church setting, I think that can definitely be the case. Because each church culture is different, even if the people are awesome, sometimes the culture has just been the same way for so many years, that it just maybe doesn't have, either it's extremely, for example, during music, people are more stiff, stand up, sit down, don't really clap, don't really move much, or it could be the exact opposite, and someone who wants to just kind of sit and be more and have more of a silent kind of reverence during worship, they might feel overwhelmed, when people are clapping and people are moving and whatever. And so there's definitely a part of that where, depending on what kind of church I've been a part of over the years, I've definitely had that thoughts like, man, I bet there's other groups that would maybe fit who I am or how I want to express myself during music and during worship music, differently. But
yeah,
I'm also someone who's very committed, and I think that's something that I've seen that I've learned kind of in my upbringing and from my parents is, like, I don't want to just jumping back and forth to different things, like the flavor of the month. And so that's a hard one. It's a conversation. It's a good conversation to be had. But at the same time, like, how much is the onus kind of as an individual to maybe influence a church, and how much should you just kind of fit into the church's culture, if that makes sense? I don't know. Like, I struggle with sometimes, should I just kind of, try to be more how I feel in the moment led to be or want to be, or should I be more just try to change myself in order to fit into the surroundings?
Yeah. I guess for me, the thing I value about other people, one of the things that I value is people who can just be themselves despite where they are.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like the people that just can kind of go where they go, and they are who they are regardless. I admire that about people. I feel like I give a lot of thought to, okay, I'm in this setting. And I used to, in the business world, when I was more engaged in like the corporate business world, right? Like, I would give that a lot of thought. I would definitely try to make sure that I was really understanding where I was, who I was with, and what the rules of engagement were for that setting.
Right.
And now I try to approach things in definitely a more, I guess, Christ-like way. Like, I'm always trying to engage in the attitude of kingdom type stuff, so I give that more thought than I do, like, how can I come across better to this group of people, like,
right.
I think about more kingdom type stuff, but, and I don't have this struggle really outside of church. Most settings, I'm the one that probably, there, in most settings, the lines that the group is willing to cross, I'm not going to cross those myself. But in really, really kind of, I'm trying to choose my word here, careful, but Christian PC settings, where they're very just like proper. I'm not that guy, right? I'm not that guy. I don't always use language that goes off really well, in that setting. For instance, last night, what got me thinking about it last night was we were watching The Chosen as a group, and some people from our church, are there, and they use the word in the series. They use the word hubris, and and this person did not know what that meant, and so
I don't either.
They asked,
hubris?
What does hubris mean? Yeah, hubris mean. And I said, well, it's like, the term that we would use in our culture would be cojones, yeah. And I didn't say balls, so I feel like that was, I didn't say that.
Toned it down, maybe. Yeah.
I toned it down to cojones from that. But even that term, I could tell that a few people there were like, oh my word, kind of like, I'm like, oh man, like, it was definitely one of those situations like, God, is this really where you have me? Like, is this where I am? Is this what my life has come to? Where I have to really like think through like something as simple as that. But
the correct medical term is testicles.
Yeah, I know, man. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I just wonder in that moment, that very question, God, is this really where you want me? Like, and I don't know, maybe God has me there to help loosen the group up a little bit. I don't know. But because I come at things from just a different perspective, probably. And I actually watched, it was really interesting. Do you ever watch Vice News, like on YouTube?
I think I've seen bits and pieces of stuff over the years, but I have not ever, I think, purposely watched it without somebody maybe bringing me to that or sending me something.
Okay. Well, I subscribe to their channel on YouTube because they have a lot of interesting stuff. And very like, just absorbed in our culture. It's like a great source to go to if you just want to learn about the culture, and kind of get unfiltered views of different perspectives. And they will do religious and Christian perspectives too. So I find it kind of fascinating. But they did a short little interview with a priest in Mexico who had a really influential ministry among these gangs in Mexico. And they're not like the same kind of gangs that we would think of here. They were just kind of like kids that didn't really have a purpose. So I guess in that sense it's similar, but they weren't into dealing drugs and those kind of things. I mean, they may have been using drugs, but they were more of just having good times. They were like groups of kids that was just having a good time, But they were pretty rowdy, But this priest, he kind of made friends with these kids, and started to have kind of an influence on their lives. And he, instead of making these kids more like him, he found ways to communicate a Christian message to the kids that was something they could identify with,
Mm-hmm.
And so he actually rewrote some biblical stories and used basically their lingo to tell the story. So he tried to make kind of a modern interpretation of some biblical stories to illustrate the same point that the Bible would have, And in these stories, he used the F word on occasion to talk about male and female relations, otherwise known as sex.
Mm-hmm.
And
okay.
But anyways, and people eventually really kind of put their thumb on him and forced him out of the parish because of that, And that's kind of, I could really relate to him because that's probably how I think a little bit too. Now I try not to use that specific word. I don't think I would probably go that far.
Right.
But I try to come across in ways that whoever I'm speaking with can kind of relate to. As opposed to making everybody live up to my own standard that I feel is appropriate as a Christian or, whatever. Mm. But, and I understand I'm more, what would be the word for it?
Adaptable?
No, I'm a little on less. Yeah, I'm a little more on the edge, than what some people are. I understand that. I'm comfortable with that. In my home, I didn't necessarily grow up with that, but I was around a lot of people that were much, their language, their stories, all that stuff. They just, were different than what I grew up with in my own home. But and then of course, some of the things that I've done, being a family teacher at Boys Town, for instance, my first name was a 4-letter word most days. So, I got very used to being called certain names and, all that stuff. So it doesn't really offend me or affect me like it may some people. But, but yeah, I just kind of wonder though, in these super Christian PC environments, like, man, is that really, I do find myself asking God, like, is this really where you want me? Like, I don't necessarily want to even be that, like that isn't something that really interests me. I don't feel, called to be that way, like I don't feel convicted to be that way. So I don't know. It's just something I give thought to that I thought would be interesting because I know you struggle with some of the same thoughts and have had similar experiences. Are you digging our theme music? Well, we dig it too. You can check out more Jane Gilman music at our website, janegilman.com, or you can download some of her music to your playlist on iTunes. That's GILLMAN.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of the tension of being in the world but not of the world, but yet like relating to the world but not being totally unrecognizable as a Christian, and then also in a Christian setting, like how much, like you said, it could be that you're called exactly to the environment, to an environment like that, because you're maybe able to loosen up some of that the stricter ideas of maybe how some Christians have thought about things, and I mean, it's interesting because part of it is like, well, I mean, I want there to be room in the church for both, for someone, more like you or me, and then also for someone who'd be more, we'd be different in their way of communicating and talking and acting and stuff. But it needs to be accepted, both need to be accepted, I guess. And that's hard because as soon as one person on one side tries to change the person, even though like with the priest, I mean, I don't know that much about that specific situation, but it sounds like, he doesn't fit into the box of what they imagined. And so he's kind of shunned. That's where it gets dangerous. And that's where I kind of sometimes almost want to be more of like, like if I'm in that kind of setting, like almost want to be more who I am, or even almost exaggerated version, just because I get so frustrated sometimes with the status quo or whatever, like you're it's okay if you do this, but it's not okay if you do that, because
you know what you were just making me think something about that point. Like that priest, for instance, those people I think kind of killed his ministry because they wanted him to talk in a certain way and act in a certain way, so the ultimate outcome of that was it basically just ended up killing the ministry because the people within his parish or whatever started putting so much pressure on to conform, right? And while in conforming, then he lost his influence in this other setting. And I find that happens like a lot, like we want you to conform despite the success you're having ministering to this group of people. Well, in conforming, then you lose your influence with this group that you're having like kingdom success with, That's where it really kind of rubs, like that's where I'm kind of like, okay, I'm out. I don't need to conform if me conforming means I can't reach this people group anymore. If I have to become so, I'll just use the term square. I have to become so square to fit into this mold. Like I'm not, I'm not the square peg. I'm like a probably some sort of other emoji. Octagon. I don't know. I don't know what I am, but so I just know that I'm not that. But
But that's the thing. Like, there's someone who fits more in that square peg, who is good for that environment to whatever.
And there definitely are. Yeah. There definitely are. And I'm not knocking the square environment necessarily. I'm not like, if that's who you are, that's fine. Ideally, I think for me, we were just talking about, you said somebody like me or you, and then somebody who's maybe a little more Christian PC. But if that environment could also then include like the person who's just very rough around the edges, that maybe has no filter. Because I actually, just yesterday, I experienced both extremes. Like I had somebody through work that I was around yesterday that was very, we'll just say edgy, right? Edgy, non-Christian edgy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my thought process is like, man, I couldn't bring this person into this context because that context, which would be a church context, just does not have the capacity to probably absorb this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just it would be so foreign, to this context I don't know if I could ever, bring somebody like that into that context, but my heart as somebody who is trying to follow after Jesus is like, I want to bring, ideally, like if I could over a period of time bring that person into that context, wouldn't that be beautiful? And wouldn't that be awesome just to be able to show them Christ, in that community. But when your community isn't really equipped, and that's when you start asking questions like, how do we get there? Will they get there? Or does it just need to be something totally different just to kind of meet that need? But
it reminds me, actually, you mentioned The Chosen. I love how they portray Jesus. I think we've watched like six episodes of it, but I just love how they portray Jesus in this world. You know what I mean? And like among a group of disciples who basically like go from one end of the spectrum to the other, right? Of the kind of people, and how he's just like is patient with them, and he jokes with them, and he challenges them and all these kind of things, you know what I mean? And he doesn't say like, okay, never mind, I didn't realize how rough around the edges you are, you're out of the group, or like, dude, you're not relaxed enough for our group.
You gotta loosen up.
It's kind of, I mean, he just like kind of, and obviously he was Jesus, and obviously that's also just their kind of portrayal of that. But I just love the way his just like his facial expressions and the way he interacts with those guys, and that's what I mean, because you experience both. I also experience the opposite, almost, where if you have any sort of more like conservative values, then you also don't feel at home in your church setting. You know what I mean? Like I experienced both, or
It's that book that I just read, the Dick Staub book that I've talked about quite a bit, where, you're too Christian, too pagan. You don't really fit in anywhere. And I've experienced both ends of that just recently, like we were camping out at the lake, and in that context, I was too Christian, and I knew that I didn't fit in quite. We just ran into some people that I love talking to them, and it was great. But it got to a point where I was a little too Christian, for that. And in these other contexts, I'm a little too pagan, and I guess that's just that tension. And I love what you're talking about there, because I was thinking about that last night too as we watched that episode of The Chosen. Just how Jesus navigated, and I know that's The Chosen, that's their portrayal of Jesus, right? And I know there's a lot of gray that they've filled in. They're just kind of unknown that they've done a lot of filling in of. But I think they're probably pretty on point, with Jesus works with us where we are at. And so if we are, a little more square, or if we're more of a, just an explosion of debris, whatever that is, of like physical matter or something. But, he's willing, he's patient, he's kind, he's gentle. He's willing to kind of walk with us down the path and try to help us. Of course, Jesus had in that group a certain amount of authority that you and I don't have in most groups.
Yes.
Where people don't look at us like, oh, we're obviously going to listen to you. And not that Jesus experienced that everywhere he went. Obviously, he did not. But within the group of disciples, he did have authority. I don't know. It's just some interesting stuff to think about and talk about. And I think there's probably some truth in the sense of, I think when we are ministry leaders, over time, whatever our ministry is will probably reflect us more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So, this thing that I'm in right now, I really don't know what my long-term role is. Who knows? So that if I was there on a long-term basis, then that probably would be true. Little by little, that ministry would probably start to reflect, more of who I am, because people that think kind of like I think are probably going to gravitate to that, and that's the other part of it is over time you tend to attract people kind of like yourself, that in one way or another are attracted to who you are, and so over time you can be more and more authentic. It's always the front end of that and what the front end looks like that can be a little more challenging, I think.
Yeah, it seems to me, I mean, just as we're having this conversation and as I've thought about it and talked about it before, that, it's very important to get plugged into a local church, and that church might not be everything that fits you, or you might not fit quite into that setting, but you're still going to benefit from each other. But outside of that, I think it's also like equally important. I don't know, equally important. Just it's super important to have a couple people in your life that you can be totally authentic. You know what I mean? And you can have that bond as Christian brothers and sisters, but also be who you are and be yourself. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean for us is like a blessing to have amazing wives, and and that's part of it too. But I would want the church to be a place, and I think that's kind of can be our role, and kind of everyone's role is to strive to make it a place where anybody feels comfortable, because not everyone has that. That's what hurts me probably the most, when I feel like if I've ever been in a setting of believers where I'm hesitant to bring someone into that setting, because I feel like I don't know if this person would be accepted, or I don't know if this person would be loved, or I don't know if I would have, if I would have welcomed that person, wholly and with open arms. And that's and accepted in like the general sense, not saying like, oh, you're gonna be our in our leadership team, you know what I mean, I think so. I guess that's where I think I would want to grow, and I want to try and always have some people around me where I can feel loved and comfortable, and I can be myself without being judged. But I also think we really need to strive ultimately that our local churches and communities become more like that. And it's not an easy task, but
diverse, right? Our local churches should be diverse, I think, and depending on context, diversity might mean different backgrounds, different races or ethnicities, but it also might just mean like different kinds of people from your community. You might live in a community where everyone looks similar, but they have totally different upbringings, and that's also diversity in that setting. You know what I mean? Yeah, and that would be like our setting. We don't have a lot of ethnic diversity in our area. We just don't. But we have a ton of other diversity. Yeah. In background and beliefs and experiences and stages of belief, from no belief to, having walked with Christ for a long time. But, anyways, well, interesting conversation, Seth. I do need to run. Thank you for taking a little time out and coming back from your other office, wherever that is. So.
It's fun.
Oh, yeah. Blessings to you and your family, man. Love you, man.
Love you too.
A tiny boat, a murky lake. I blink and slowly come awake. A worn out sun, my ankles ache. I must have been here for a long, long time. One box besides my feet, filled with stones from underneath. A dirty rope tied to my feet, and now I'm thrown into that freezing water. I've been drowned, I sink to the ground. The box pulls me down while beams turn greener. I've been drowned, I'm trying to shout, but no one hears the sound of screaming when you've been drowned. One box fades into the brackish fog. My toes land on muddy fleas next to rotten logs. It's hard to move, I feel like I'm locked in a cotton cage. The swamps all up by silent like a grave. Blurry figures sneaking through the creeper's wood. Impromptu adoption is far too well understood. Dull acceptance vital to this underwater culture, while the spikes cycling us like vultures. I've been drowned, I sink to the ground. The box pulls me down while beams turn greener. I've been drowned, I'm trying to shout, but no one hears the sound of screaming when you've been drowned. If you help me put a stone out of my box, one by one, I might just be able to float to the surface. I've been drowned, I've been drowned, I've been drowned, I sank to the ground. The box pulls me down while beams turn greener. I've been drowned, I'm trying to shout, but no one hears the sound of screaming. I've been drowned, I sank to the ground. The box pulls